What's good, 7-footer gang? Yes, it's Jarod. Solo today. No Jenna. She's on assignment today interviewing Kobe White from North Carolina, one of the NBA draft hopefuls that will be selected sometime on Thursday. We are going to talk all things NBA today, and this league is insane, like literally insane. The Toronto Raptors won the NBA title, on Thursday, and we had no time to prepare for that. They win it, and all hell breaks loose. Anthony Davis gets traded. Chris Paul demands a trade. The draft is coming up. Poor Toronto. No time for them. But we will get to them eventually. But we must start with this Anthony Davis trade, which, wow, blockbuster. So Anthony Davis, one of the 5 best players in the entire NBA, is going to the Los Angeles Lakers, which is what he wanted all along. Rich Paul did his thing. In return, the New Orleans Pelicans get Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, and 3 first-round picks, including the number 4 overall pick in Thursday's draft, which, that is what it is, right? I mean, many people say this is a 2-player draft, so, the number 4 pick isn't that big of a deal. First, we want to talk about this idea of who won the trade. It really isn't about who won the trade, right? The NBA is about stars and big-time players getting compiled on a team to win a championship, right? That is your ultimate goal. Anthony Davis is 26 years old and one of the 5 best players in the NBA. You are now pairing him with LeBron James, who might be the greatest player of all time. That's a pretty good starting duo. Now, the Lakers have some problems because the rest of that roster is not very good. They got Mo Wagner, they got Kyle Kuzma, and some people you've never heard of. And in order for them to win the title, as we've seen in this most recent finals, you need more than top-line guys. So the Lakers, and we're going to talk about this from a Lakers perspective first before we get to the Pelicans, they have a little bit of a conundrum here, right? Because the way the CBA and the cap works, without getting too bogged down in the minutia, is if the trade is completed on July 30th, right, then the Lakers have $32.5 million in cap space, which would be enough to potentially get a max-level player, which is what everyone thinks you should do, right? Get that third superstar, whether it's Kyrie, whether it's Kemba, Jimmy Butler, whomever. But the problem is they're probably not going to wait till July 30th for that deal, and because the Pelicans have no incentive for it. The other part about that is Anthony Davis is a trade kicker, which means when he gets traded, he can exercise a $4 million option. I mean, it's free money. Why would you pass up $4 million? I wouldn't. Shoot, I wouldn't pass up $4,000, $400, much less $4 million. So if they doesn't do that, that's $4 million less. So the likelihood of what this cap situation is going to be is there's going to be probably around $23 to $25 million. More likely $23.7 million. Okay. What can the Lakers do with $23.7 million? Now, you're all sitting home going, Jarod, that's a lot of money. $23.7 million, you can do a lot with that. Maybe. Remember, they've got to fill out a roster. $23.7 million in the NBA is not that much money. You're eliminating all the max guys right off the bat if you have 23.7, unless you're able to convince Kemba or Kyrie to come here and take less money, which maybe they will. But Kemba's eligible for the Supermax. Why would he take that much less money? 5 years, $221 that the Hornets can offer him. I don't know. That's north of $40 million a year. You want me to now take 23? I don't know about that. 40 million is greater than 23. I knew that much in math class. Okay, no Kemba. Maybe Kyrie says, all right, this whole Boston thing didn't work out the way I wanted it to. I want to get back with LeBron. Maybe we'll see what's happening with AD. Let's make this work. You really think Kyrie Irving's going to take less than the max? $23 million? Probably not. Jimmy Butler's definitely not doing it. Okay. So now we're in that range of Malcolm Brogdon's, people like that. Here's the problem with Malcolm Brogdon. Malcolm Brogdon is a restricted free agent. Milwaukee's going to do everything they can to keep Malcolm Brogdon. So you're probably not going to get him unless you overpay. And again, if you overpay, that's going to hamstring you for the rest of your roster. So while on the one hand, it is incredible that the Lakers got Anthony Davis, again, a top 5 player in the NBA, who's 26 years old. Not only a top 5 player, but also arguably maybe the second or third best defensive player in the league. That's incredible. You have to make that trade every single time. But as we saw with these NBA Finals, when your roster is top heavy, a la the Golden State Warriors, when you have an injury to one guy, Kevin Durant, or in the Golden State Warriors case, 2 guys, and Klay Thompson, well, you now have people thrust into roles that they're not accustomed to. You have Quinn Cook, Alfonso McKinney, Jonas Jerebko playing crucial finals minutes. And if your goal is to win a title, which is obviously what the Los Angeles Lakers want to do, listen, we all love Kyle Kuzma, but, you feeling confident with Kyle Kuzma and Mo Wagner being guys playing multiple big-time minutes in the finals? Don't know if you're winning with that. Okay, so now what do? We got to get into that 10, 5, 5, 2, 2, 1 range, right? Is that up 23? 10, 5, 5, 20. Yeah, that's pretty good. About 23.7. Can you get a guy at 10, another guy at 5 that's 15, maybe some guy at 3 that's 18, and then a bunch of guys at 1? I don't know. Here's my question if you're a Lakers fan. Given what you've seen from this front office, which is now Rob Pelinka, do you have any confidence that he can go out and maneuver and negotiate and get the best guys available to fill out the rest of that 23.7? Maybe he can, maybe he can't. Maybe you say, nah, we got to convince Kemba or Kyrie to come here, take a little bit less, and we fill out the rest of that. Because we're gonna go over the cap anyway, right? So if you go over the cap and you sign a bunch of guys to veteran minimums to 1-year deals, I mean, you can do that. Vince Carter comes to mind. He may take a veteran minimum. But again, you've got to make it through the regular season, right? Get to the playoffs and then go from there. I don't know. Now, look, the combination of LeBron James and Anthony Davis is already the best combination in the league, right? That's the best 1-2 punch because Kevin Durant will not be playing next year, which is extremely sad. Klay Thompson, in all likelihood, will not be playing next year, which is also sad. So the Warriors, they got Steph and Draymond, but let's be honest. If the Warriors are smart, do you want to ride Steph and Draymond into the ground? I don't know, man. Maybe you say, you know what, we might punt this year. So the West is kind of open. We know about all the drama going on in Houston. We've heard over the past several weeks since they got knocked out by the Warriors, all the drama going on between Chris Paul and James Harden behind the scenes. These guys didn't get along, and we'll get to them later. Okay, well, you got the Rockets. Who knows what's going on with them? Daryl's making everybody available. The Denver Nuggets. Okay, they were the 2 seed. You could argue they're one player away, but, who's that one player? And is Denver a free agency hotbed? Not particularly. But Michael Porter Jr. comes back this summer, comes back next year after playing Summer League. He gives them 15, 20 minutes a game next year. That could be the deciding factor. Who knows? We now have a league that's wide open. Utah, they can make some noise. Sacramento's on the up and coming. We're gonna have a lot of different playoff teams. Oklahoma City, they're kind of hamstrung, but the Steven Adams contract is always out there to trade because they are at the cap. They can do some things. So we've got a wide open, not just Western Conference, but league now that the Warriors dynasty, at least for the short term next year, is seemingly over. Again, this question is, who do the Lakers target next? Who do they have their eyes on? And I've been going back and forth on this for a while. Should you go after Kemba or one of these amazing guys, Kyrie and Jimmy, get another max guy? Or do you build the roster out? And I don't know. I'm torn. So on the one hand, if you got 3 stars, you're better prepared for the future because if one goes down, you got 2. And keep in mind, LeBron James has 3 years left on his deal. LeBron isn't getting younger. By the time his contract ends, he's going to be, 39, 40? So if you've got 2 guys, Anthony Davis and some other younger max guy on the roster, your future rebuild looks better. And you need that. You want to know why? Because you gave up all your first-round draft picks for the next half decade. So, the only way you build a team is either through the draft, free agency via trade, right? So, if they don't have that, what are they going to do? Trades and free agency in the draft. That's how you build your team. Well, again, the Lakers' draft position is compromised for the next 5 years. And listen, to be clear, you do that every time for Anthony freaking Davis. But if you don't win the title in the next 1, 2, or 3 years, how are you going to build? You're banking everything on signing draft picks. Maybe you can. Look, you got Anthony Davis in a trade, but who have the Lakers signed besides LeBron James, a major free agent of consequence in the last 5, 6, 7 years? That's something to think about. Now, from the Pelicans standpoint, this is incredible. David Griffin, EVP of basketball operations, and new GM Trajan Langdon need to be given all the kudos because they have an immediate culture rebuild and reset here in New Orleans. Just 6 months ago, it was dire straits. You had the football medical team taking care of the basketball guys. You had Mickey Loomis, who's the Saints GM, running things. What does he know about basketball? In literally 6 months, Gail Benson got David Griffin, probably the best executive in the league, to run operations, have a whole culture reset. They got lucky, and to be clear, you need luck in this game. They got lucky, secured the number 1 draft pick, which we know will be Zion Williamson come Thursday, who everyone believes is a generational, transformational type of player. That's incredible. And now, with this trade, you have all these draft picks. You've got this year's 4. You've got 3 others. Oh, and by the way, you have Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, and Kyle Kuzma. 3 guys under the age of 24, 2 of whom were top 2, top 3 picks. It's kind of a good haul. Now, we don't know what Lonzo Ball can ultimately be. We don't know what Brandon Ingram ultimately is. We don't know what Josh Hart is, but hey, they're young guys who, if you're David Griffin and Trajan Langdon and you believe in your cultural reset and your player development, well, wow. I mean, you got the makings of a nice team. And oh, by the way, you also have Drew Holiday on your squad, who, might be the best defensive point guard in the league. Hello. And Zion Williamson. Oh, and you have cap space. I mean, the Pelicans can make the playoffs this year. That's incredible. A team that had Anthony Davis last year was terrible, didn't know what they were doing, in literally 6 months is now in the catbird seat and has a potential future that looks bright. Now, what do the Pelicans do? Do they stand pat? Right? We know they're taking Zion number 1. Do they package and trade that 4 with Drew Holiday to get, I don't know, a big, a wing? They have cap space. Do they max out? Do they say, hey, Tobias Harris, come play for us? I don't know. But they've got lots of options out here. Hey, you know who might like Drew Holiday? The Philadelphia 76ers might like Drew Holiday and a number 4 draft pick. What do the 76ers have that the Pelicans might want in return? I don't know. Right? There's some interesting things. So right now, David Griffin, Trajan Langdon, and the New Orleans Pelicans are looking incredible. And I can't wait to see what it is that they do on draft day. Do they pick it for? Do they trade it? So let's run it for a while. See how we do until December, January. You know what? People who are contending want Drew Holiday. Let's move him. Okay. What can we get back in return? We know that the Atlanta Hawks want to move up desperately. The Knicks rebuffed their demands to get the number 3 pick. I mean, hey, can you convince Atlanta to give up some stuff to get the number 4 pick? Will whoever they have targeted at 4 still be there? I don't know. But you've got options. And this is ultimately what you want if you're David Griffin and the Pelicans. So is it the Lakers won, the Pelicans won? Let's not do that. They both won. And there's no way of telling, again, what this is going to be in the future because we don't know what those draft picks are going to convey to. We have no idea. And we have no idea who's going to be in those drafts and what's going to be good. But we do know that you have a lot of lottery tickets. And the best chance to win the lottery is to have tickets. And the Pelicans have a ton of tickets. All right, we're going next segment. Now, the Boston Celtics. Woo! You know, Celtics fans, hashtag Celtic pride, you guys were supposed to be players for Anthony Davis. And now it looks like you're going to lose Kyrie to free agency because he wasn't happy in Boston. And, you know, here's where it's challenging for Danny Ainge, Celtics GM. I always say, and everyone thinks that, you know, being an NBA GM is so easy. All you guys at home, you play 2K. NBA GM is not 2K. It's not salary caps off, approve all trades, no injuries. That's not how this works. Building a team is extremely difficult. Not only do you have to get players that fit your style and system, you also have to get players that get along, right? Remember back to what the great Isaiah Thomas said the secret of basketball is. The secret of basketball is it's not actually about basketball, right? You got to have guys that get along, and we're seeing that's a problem in Houston right now. So you're going to lose Kyrie in free agency. That's problematic. And what was the sticking point? Why weren't the Celtics players to get Anthony Davis? Did Danny get scared off by Rich Paul and Clutch? Rich Paul, who runs the Clutch sports talent agency, who has Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Ben Simmons, among others, as their clients. Rich Paul came out in that S.L. Price written piece for Sports Illustrated and said, listen, if the Celtics trade for Anthony Davis, we will go there and we will honor the 1 year in our contract, which, by the way, caveat, note to selves, people. Everyone's like, yeah, AD, Lakers. AD has 1 year remaining on this contract with the Lakers, right? That's that original deal aside with the Pelicans. When it runs out at the end of next basketball season, he will enter free agency. Now, everyone assumes he's going to re-sign with the Lakers, and he might, and he maybe likely will. But he can also go somewhere else. His true free agency year is next summer, not this summer. Keep that in mind. So back to Rich Paul and that whole deal. So Rich says in that article by S.L. Price, we will honor our contract if we are traded to Boston. But we're not going to re-sign there, meaning in the summer of 2020. So if you guys give up all your assets, and I hate using that term assets. Assets are draft picks and cash. Those are assets. Players and talent are people. If you guys give up all your players and your talent, Tatum, Brown, and you give up other assets, picks, whatever, and we don't re-sign, don't blame Rich Paul. That's literally what he said in the article. Don't blame me because we told you we're not re-signing here. I think Danny got scared. Danny said, oh my God, we can't do that. We can't give up Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, picks. That's terrible. Is it though? And that's a tough thing, right? Danny tried to do two things at once. Play the long game and play the short game, which, look, as a GM, that is your job, right? You kind of have to have an eye towards the future and at the same time win now, which, of course, they're counterintuitive, right? How do I win now and also plan for the future? I mean, the organizations best equipped at doing that we've seen over the course of time have been the San Antonio Spurs and to some extent the Oklahoma City Thunder, right? I mean, even with the James Harden trade, which is abominable, and letting Kevin Durant go in free agency, but Kevin wanted to leave. Look, say what you want. Oklahoma City is a perennial playoff team. Now, they're probably not going to win a title anytime soon, but listen, there's something to be said about winning 50 games every year and making the playoffs. I mean, only one team can win the title. Not everybody gets to win it. So it is what it is, right? So back to Danny and the Celtics. Danny took a gamble and said, no, we don't want to give up Tatum or Brown for Anthony Davis. I mean, if it were me, we're talking about Anthony Davis. I know that everybody thinks Jason Tatum might be an all-NBA guy someday. Anthony Davis is an all-NBA guy today, right now. Why would I bet on potential? Maybe he might become. Anthony Davis already is. Now, it could be that Kyrie, they got the vibes that Kyrie wasn't coming back. Who knows? The real area where Danny may have messed up was not going all in on Kawhi, right? Because they were in play. They had a chance to get Kawhi. And we saw what the Toronto Raptors and Masai Ujiri did. They rolled the dice. Worked out. Paid off pretty well for them. Your NBA champs are in Toronto. And geez, we're what? 20 minutes into this podcast, and this is the first time we've mentioned the Toronto Raptors. Or the second time? I mean, we got to get to them later. But, it's difficult to have that mindset and make that gamble. I mean, Danny's got enough job security. Roll the dice, man. Take a chance. You win the title. Hey, it's a chip. Then maybe you can say, Kawhi, you sure you want to leave? We just won the title. And that's the decision Kawhi's faced with right now in Toronto. Okay, you can go to LA, which is what everybody said he's always wanted all along. Sure enough. You sure you know what's going to happen in LA with the Clippers? Yeah, they got cap space. They got some young pieces. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Landry Shamet. You got some things. But you know what you have in Toronto, which is a championship team. You'd be defending your title. A medical staff who you trust, who you went through this whole load management thing on. It worked out well. So, for Danny, I think he will rue the day that he did not go after Kawhi and make that trade. And now he's going to go into next season with Terry Rozier, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Al Horford opted out, by the way. And hopefully Gordon Hayward can return to what he was prior to the injury. And look, that's the makings of a pretty good team. But remember, the Celtics weren't supposed to be a pretty good team. The Celtics were supposed to be one of the great teams to dominate the Eastern Conference over the next half decade, 7-8 years throughout Brown and Tatum's prime. Now, look, you're contending with the Milwaukee Bucks now. You're contending with the Toronto Raptors potentially, the Philadelphia 76ers, the Jersey Nets, the Indiana Pacers, all these young teams coming up behind who might be wanting to do big things. I don't know. Segment. So, guys, the NBA draft is almost upon us. 2 days away, Thursday. We are going to have what is largely considered by many people a two-player draft. I don't like doing that whole thing, but look, it is what it is. Zion Williamson's the guy that everybody says that's your number one, your transformative, generational superstar talent. You got John Morant from Murray State. You got R.J. Barrett, Zion's teammate at Duke. And then you have, who knows, Jarrett Culver. You got a variety of different people that you can talk about and figure out who you want to pick and where to go from there. If you're New Orleans, the Zion's a no-brainer. But after Zion and after John Morant, which is the Memphis Grizzlies have the number 2 pick, that is what we've been told is where they are headed. And that'd be a nice pairing, right? You'd have Jaren Jackson Jr., John Morant. That's sort of the future of your team. I kind of like that, right? Not too bad. Memphis is probably going to be bad again next year, but you can build. You can go from there. After that, it's a crapshoot, right? The Knicks are saying, hey, they like R.J. Barrett. Jarrett Culver is an excellent 2-guard. Maybe the Pelicans pick him up and move him. Who knows? And you got DeAndre Hunter.
Man, we are aching. And
boy, do we got some sound here, guys. I don't even know what that is. We got some sound coming from my laptop. All good. And so, again, this whole idea of 2-player draft, whatever. Look, nobody knows who's going to be what. The only thing that everyone is, quote unquote, sure about is Zion Williamson. And really, how sure are you? All right, everyone's saying this is the greatest prospect since LeBron James. Okay, so if that's what you're saying, do you then now expect him to have a LeBron James career? It's asking a lot. I mean, LeBron James might be the greatest player of all time. That's a hell of a lot to ask. I mean, is he even going to have Anthony Davis's career? I don't know. I mean, you're really banking a lot on this here. We hope he's good, and from all indications, his work ethic and what he wants to do, that's what we think. But we don't know for sure. So we need to pump the brakes on all this. And the other thing that we have to keep in mind is you don't know when guys get to the league what their work ethic is going to be and how committed and how driven they're going to be the best possible versions of themselves. The example I can draw to that's so easy, none of us thought Steph Curry was going to be what he is. Not a single soul. And now look, right? So now I'm not saying that any guy in this draft is going to be Steph Curry. What I am saying is that we don't know who or what anyone's going to project to be. All it is hope. And that's the beauty of draft day, right? It's hope. It's like, oh, man, we get this guy. We're going to be great. You might. I think we're in for seeing some explosive draft day trades, not just with picks, but also as we start to get ready towards free agency. Atlanta is very interesting down at 8 and 10. We know they wanted to move up to 3 to target, what I'm assuming is R.J. Barrett. The Knicks said no, and so who knows what Atlanta's going to do. Darius Garland is someone that the Knicks have also worked out. Another player in this draft that could be interesting. We have a lot of options here of guys who can really help teams going forward. And, every team believes you get into my system, you work with my player development guys, we think you could be X, Y, and Z. I'm going to tell you some guys who I like in this draft who I think will be really good. I already said I love the pairing of John Morant with my guy, Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr. down in Memphis. I also love Jarrett Culver from Texas Tech. Got a chance to see him play Duke, I think it was November of last year. Was really impressed with his game. Like him a lot. DeAndre Hunter's good. Darius Garland. I love Kobe White. He's so fast. A blur with the ball. Like him a lot. And, obviously he needs to be in up and down open space. Someone that people aren't talking about a lot is Cam Reddish. Kind of had a somewhat disappointing year at Duke. But, Coach get a lot of malice to feed. You got Zion, you got RJ, and, RJ thought he was always the man and going to shoot every time down. But Cam can shoot it. So that's someone that we keep an eye on. And I like this kid early in the year. I don't know where he's going to end up, and there's the injury concerns and all that. I like Bol from Oregon, man. I really do. I got a chance to see him play a little bit at the beginning of the year. Was really impressed with what I saw. Look, he's rail thin, needs to put some weight on, and the injury concerns always bother you. I don't know if you go lottery with him, but he's someone I like a lot. I love Nasir Little from Carolina. I think, he was kind of miscast in the role he was playing in Carolina. He's another guy I think will thrive in an open court. Romeo Langford, another guy that people have been talking about. There are a lot of options. What we need to make sure that we do is keep in mind we don't know where any of these people are going to go, and we also don't know what they're going to be. Right? That's the biggest thing. But if you trust your player development and you trust that you've got the right guys in place who can identify here is a position of need, here is someone we think has shown us enough upside, this is what we can do. And, hey, listen, sky's the limit, right? I mean, anything is possible, as the great Kevin Garnett once said. Segment, and actually a break. Audio sounding good, yeah?
Absolutely.
And how's the energy level coming off to you?
It's good. We're still live.
All good. I don't mind that much.
Yeah, I panicked. I thought that was me, but then I couldn't figure out how because I'm not using this computer.
Oh yeah. No, that was this. That was this because I pulled up the mock draft and it had audio playing and I forgot to mute. So
we're all good.
All right, and we are coming back in 5, 4, 3, 2. All right, so when you talk about the drafts, another name I forgot to mention, Jontay Porter, younger brother of Michael Porter Jr., another excellent guy that I think can really do some things. And he wants to make a name for himself. So loving Jontay Porter, I think he can do some damage somewhere. Maybe, maybe Denver picks him up and you get the Porter brothers together. Maybe not. Anyway, can we take a moment to celebrate the Toronto Raptors, please? Please, the Toronto Raptors, your 2019 NBA champions. Give it up one time for the Raptors. They did it, man. They were incredible. In a war of attrition, they outlasted the Golden State Warriors. And one of the big things I loved about how the Raptors approached this finals was, man, they were not afraid. They took the Warriors' punched right back. They were never rattled. When the Warriors would go on that 20-0 run, 18-0 run, or the Oracle crowd would get loud. If they were in Scotiabank in Toronto, their crowd would get quiet. Toronto would just fight back every time. Of the 2 games the Warriors won, there was not one game where you were like, oh, yeah, the Warriors put it on these guys. They never did. Not once. The Raptors, listen, the Raptors could have won all of those games. They were in every single one of them. And a big kudos obviously goes to Kawhi Leonard. He was incredible. Your finals MVP, joining the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and LeBron James as the only 2 men to win finals MVPs for 2 different franchises. Kareem obviously with the Bucks and the Lakers, LeBron with the Heat and the Cavs, and Kawhi obviously with the Spurs and now the Raptors. Which, brings us now to an interesting point. If you're Toronto, and, I'm sorry, Toronto, you just had your parade. You want to be able to celebrate, but all eyes have to turn forward and look ahead to see, okay, where do we go from here? It's going to be hard for Kawhi to leave Toronto. Look, I know he wants to live in L.A. I know his family's in San Diego, all that. But, my dude, you just won the title, the chip. You guys can run it back. And Masai Ujiri, GM of the Raptors, has proven he is not afraid to make trades. Listen, Kyle Lowry's on the last year of his deal. That's an expiring contract. And it sounds cold right now to be like, hey, Kyle, we're going to move you. But, hey, that's an expiring. They can move it to get somebody else in here. Maybe you get Mike Conley in. Reunite Conley and Gasol. Not a bad deal. I don't know if the salaries match up. We'll see if that works. Pascal Siakam, you assume, will make another leap. He was already the most improved. Hasn't been announced yet. Next Monday are your NBA awards. I'm pretty confident he will be named your most improved player. He's going to make another leap. You got Fred VanVleet. You got Serge Ibaka. You got Gasol. I think Gasol can also opt out, or opt in or opt out. So, this team could run it back. Do they want to? Should they? Let's not forget, OG Anunoby was hurt, didn't really play. So you get OG back, and OG was a guy who was ascending last year. Hey, these Raptors got young talent, and they can do some things. So let's not count out the fact that the Raptors could turn this all around. Now, the Raptors could also be like your 2011 Dallas Mavericks, right? You win it once, and then it all blows up because Kawhi leaves, and who knows. But if Kawhi does in fact leave and go to L.A. or wherever, Masai can easily rebuild, right? Because you know who your pieces are. Your foundational pieces are Pascal, Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby. Okay. Again, you can move that Lowry deal. You can get some picks in here, start rebuilding. And honestly, a team with OG, Pascal, Kyle Lowry, I could probably still make the playoffs. So, it may not even be that much of a huge teardown because you've got some cornerstones. You obviously will still need that transformational, generational guy. We don't think Pascal's not that guy, but Pascal's proven he can be a number 2 on a championship team. Who's that other guy that they can either acquire through trade, free agency, what have you? But kudos to the Raptors. Kudos to Kyle Lowry, KLOE. Shout out to Zach Harper of The Athletic. Kyle Lowry over everything. Kyle had a very maligned playoff rep. And some of it earned, some of it a little overblown, especially the last couple of years. Kyle earned that now. Y'all can't say anything about Kyle Lowry now. He's an NBA champion. He played tough when it mattered most. Tough minutes. Scored, had that, playing out with one hand, basically. It's funny, we always talk about the Warriors and their injuries, and they were severe and significant. The Raptors were playing with injuries, too. OG didn't even play. Kawhi clearly has on one leg. Lowry had one hand. Listen, guys were hurt and banged up. Serge Ibaka was huge as well for the Raptors. Here's a guy who had finals experience prior to on the Oklahoma City Thunder. He played big minutes, huge minutes, grabbing rebounds, blocking shots, timely shots, big time for them. I mean, Fred VanVleet, what can you say? Since those babies were born, woo! VanVleet was on a tear. He was incredible, top to bottom. And Marc Gasol was excellent as well. These guys, they were legitimately incredible, and they earned that title. You know, I saw some stuff going around on Twitter about, you know, is there an asterisk on this title? There's no such thing as asterisks. You play whoever's in front of you, period. It doesn't matter that Durant and Thompson were hurt. Guess what? When the Warriors won their title in 2015, they played every team without their starting point guard and played the Cavaliers without Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving. And there's no asterisk on that title. It doesn't matter. You play who is in front of you, and you beat who's in front of you. Plain and simple. And the Raptors did it. I mean, in those 24 quarters of basketball, the Raptors were clearly the dominant team. Kudos to Toronto and Canada. Hashtag We the North. Did you guys see that when the Raptors were heading to the stage for the finals and the championship presentation trophy, ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski drops a bomb saying that the Washington Wizards are pursuing Masai Ujiri, will pay him in excess of $10 million per year with equity stake in the team. Jeez, Woj. Can the Raptors at least celebrate their win before you take away their GM? Now, will Masai go? Will he not? Look, that offer is real, right? Woj doesn't make things up, and the good folks that cover the Wizards for The Athletic, they don't, this has been reported for quite some time now. The question is, will Masai take it or not? I don't know. He might like what he has going on. I know that his wife is from the D.C. area, so there's some calling there. Maybe he knows Kawhi isn't staying, and he's like, you know what? I'll take the challenge on of rebuilding the Wizards, and $10 million is a lot of money. I mean, I don't know about you. Not many jobs I'm refusing that are paying me $10 million a year. You are working for the Wizards, and look, that roster's a problem. You're not having John Wall all of next year. Oh, by the way, he's another one. John Wall not playing next year with an Achilles. Listen, there's a lot. There is a lot going on there. But $10 million is $10 million, and equity is equity. He might want some part ownership. Who knows? Jury's still out on that. The Golden State Warriors, really quickly. Is the dynasty over? Look, man, we said it numerous times, and I'll say it again. There is a reason why the NBA isn't littered with dozens of teams that have gone to the finals 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times in a row. First of all, it's damn near impossible. And there's a cost. There is a cost to playing 100-plus NBA games late into every season. Physically, your body just can't do it. You're going to break down at some point. It's just the fact of the matter. And this is what happened to the Golden State Warriors, and this is what it looks like often when dynasties end. Dynasties implode for one of two reasons. Either GMs break them up, one of a few reasons. GMs break them up because they can't afford it, money. Guys want more starring roles. They don't want to sacrifice anymore, what have you. Pat Riley famously called it the disease of more, right? Guys wanting more, not being content with just winning. I want to be the man, right? Those are ways that they can end. Injury. Again, 100-plus playoff games year after year after year. I don't think the average fan understands what the intensity of that type of basketball is. It is intense. Your body's getting worked over and over and over. You're getting banged off screens. It's a lot, man. 5 years in a row, not to mention Olympic years in there. That's a lot of basketball, man. A lot of basketball. This is what starts happening. Bodies start breaking down. And look, one of the things we're going to have to discuss with this league is this idea of rest. And I know that the league doesn't like that idea of rest, and the fans are owed to see their favorite players play. If you're a fan, what would you rather see? Meaningless is the wrong word, but a February regular season game, or your favorite player or your favorite players and the best players in this league playing when the games matter the most, which is in the playoffs, the highest leverage games. It's hard to do, man. It is very hard to do. And we're going to see more and more as more sports science gets into this and more teams realize this 82-game schedule, that ain't the way to do it, man. We got to spread this stuff out. And so, as Kawhi said to ESPN's Rachel Nichols, if I wasn't on this load management plan with Toronto, there's no way we win the NBA championship this year. Kawhi played 60-something games this year. And guess what? 62, 63, that might be the right amount of games to have optimal health for the NBA playoffs. That's not to say that no one will get hurt. What it's to say is that fewer games, your injury risk goes down. There are always freak things that happen because that's just the nature of sport and physical contact sports. Guys are going to get hurt. But if you can reduce the percentage and the chance of non-contact injuries, like a hamstring, wouldn't you want to see that? I know I would. Now, as far as the Warriors and their dynasty over, look, I think this injury is interesting because it opens up the fact that KD could return, right? He could say, you know what? I'm going to take my 5-year, $221 million max from the Warriors, which Bob Myers already said he and Klay, the max, we're going to put it on the table for them come July 1. So he could take it, and they could run it back. Now, remember, KD and Klay almost likely, KD for sure, but Klay almost certainly will be out all of next year. So, listen, if you're the Warriors, Draymond and Steph, all right, maybe we say, Steph, how's that ankle feeling? Not so great? Why don't you sit out 2 weeks? I'm not saying tank, but I'm kind of saying tank, right? Maybe you just don't make the playoffs and you try to get a good draft pick. Because, again, the way in which the Warriors are going to be able to run this back, and by run it back, I mean with Klay, Steph, KD, and Draymond and that crew, they're going to need young, talented players around them because they're not going to be able to get anybody, by and large, sign big-time free agents through the draft, unless, of course, they trade Draymond, which is a whole other thing, which they could potentially do. Maybe they get some guys on veteran minimums, but if they have to retool around, because what you saw in this year's finals was the guys on the fringes and the margins. And again, stars do what stars do. You know what you're going to get from your star players. You win titles on the margins. Their margins guys weren't good enough. Alfonso McKinney, Quinn Cook, Jonas Jerebko, Sean Livingston, wasn't happening this year. Wasn't happening. Because Toronto's guys were better. So, again, you build your team through trades, the draft, and free agency. The Warriors got to start hitting with some of these late picks. And if they don't make the playoffs last year, they got to hit with one of these. If they can get lucky enough to get in the lottery or what have you, get a good player, right? That, again, is on a team-friendly contract that you can then have the control over. That's how you build. That's the key, guys. That's how you maintain success in this league. Easier said than done, of course. All right, before we get out of here, what is going on in Houston? Good God. Yahoo Sports' Vinny Goodwill has reported that Chris Paul demanded a trade. Apparently, he and James Harden aren't getting along. Who could have predicted that? And I want to be clear. The Rockets are in a precarious situation because, again, with the Warriors seemingly, for next year at least, out of the picture, the Rockets have been the only team in the Western Conference to give the Warriors any kind of trouble. We know 2 years ago, Game 7, they were a Chris Paul hamstring away from going to the NBA Finals. This year, went to 6 games. Now, granted, that was in the conference semifinals, but had that been in the conference finals, we'd be thinking about this team differently. What does Daryl do? You got cap issues and you got no draft picks. You're to the gills. Okay, who is taking on Chris Paul and 3 years remaining on that deal at $40 million plus per year? That's a lot of money for an aging point guard. That's a lot. And you know here, I love the point guard, one of my favorite players in the league. But, that's a lot of money for an aging point guard. Who's taking on that contract? And what are you getting back in return? So ESPN's Tim McMahon also talked about the dysfunction going on in Houston. And this is a bad time for Houston to be going through this because, look, their title window may have just cracked back open. But, look, you got an issue with Harden and CP3 right now. And the problem is that this offense is just not working in its current iteration. Now, I'm going to be clear. You all know I loved Harden doing his thing because he had to. Chris Paul was out most of the year. Harden had to carry that load, be the ISO scorer, do all that stuff. He had to do those things in order for Houston to be what they were. The problem was, though, when Paul got back, the offense didn't change at all. It was still, I'm going ISO. Okay, Chris, you take it now. But when it's Chris's turn and he's got the ball, James isn't doing anything. He's just sitting there, resting off ball. And that's not an offense. We've talked about this before. If you watch basketball, you understand. You know, ultimately, even if you're as good in isolation as James Harden is, you know what's easy to defend? Isolation basketball. You know what's hard to defend? Player movement and ball movement, because it forces the defense to react and think. Now, to be clear and to be fair, in the playoffs, sometimes you just need a guy who can get a bucket, because all that off-ball cutting and all, sometimes that's just, you can't do it because defenses know and they stop it, and it's not. And you need a guy who can get you a bucket. And again, that's where Harden would come in. But in order for the offense to flow well, you need movement. And if Harden has the ball and he's pounding it in, going isolation, well, what's Chris Paul doing? He's just standing there. If you know anything about Chris Paul's not having that. He's not standing in the corner. And in that ESPN article that Tim McMahon wrote, apparently James Harden was unhappy with Chris Paul coaching him. Listen, again, I love Chris Paul, but Chris Paul's that kind of guy who's on your team where, he will wear on you, right? Because he's such a perfectionist. And, you know, he's got a little bit of that Napoleon complex as well, and he will grind on you when you mess up, constantly barking. That was the stuff coming out of the Clippers, right? Blake Griffin had enough. It's like, I'm tired of getting yelled at by this dude every 2 seconds. That is Chris Paul. That is who he is as a basketball player. He's going to demand excellence always. And look, Chris Paul's one of the more brilliant basketball minds we have. So I bet when he was coaching Harden, there were probably some things Harden should have listened to. But in that situation, James is the better player. So if I'm the better player, you ain't going to tell me what to do. Even though what you're telling me is probably something I can use, James Harden's like, nah, man, I'm the MVP on this team. How many MVPs you got? Though arguably Chris Paul should have won an MVP. But conversation for a different day. So, looks like a disaster in Houston. Daryl Morey, GM, and Tillman Fertitta, the owner, appear to be on opposite sides. Who knows what's going on with Mike D'Antoni? And it's unfortunate for them, again, because with the things being in flux as they are in the West, this could have been an opportunity for them. And it could still be, but some changes definitely going to have to come in Houston. Well, guys, that was another riveting episode of the 7 Footers podcast. I want to thank you all so much for joining us. As always, we are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Twitter, Instagram, at 7 Footers, at JS Hector. Jenna Lemoncelli will be back next week after the draft so we can break it all down. We'll have some good draft content for you guys as well coming later on this week while we are talking to the various players involved, GMs, potential draftees, etc. But make sure you follow, subscribe, do all those things, comment, rate, review. We appreciate you. Till next time. Peace. Will we go on minutes?